LinkedIn live session, FaceTime, YouTube. We're putting it out there everywhere. So I will wait for some people to jump on and tell us you're here with your chats. We'll watch the eyeballs start to pop and happen. So excited to be talking to you today about feedback. Super old topic. But what I'm hearing is people are like coming back together and needing some pivots and some adjustments in the way people are connecting and working together and in how people are approaching what's being required of them at work. And it seems like we've gotten rusty on feedback. And so I wanted to be coming on, reminding us about feedback, but reminding us that what's even more important than feedback is self-reflection. So I'm going to wait for y'all to gather. We're getting some good numbers here. Yay. And we got Christina on. Sarah from my reality-based dream team is on. We're going to talk today for a few minutes on feedback and both giving and receiving. Old topic, something I haven't revisited for quite some time. And throw your questions into the chat because I can talk about anything related to feedback or other questions or ideas for other topics as we schedule our LinkedIn Live that also appears on Facebook and YouTube. So Stephanie's on. I love it when you guys say hello. I recognize so many awesome people that join us for these sessions. And then we have so many viewers that watch afterwards. Thousands of people are enjoying these sessions, which is a little mind-blowing. So Tina loves the topic, trying to make part of our routine convos at work. So Tina, let's start there. I want people to get so fluent in the giving and receiving of feedback that it's conversational, that whatever we have in conversation, we won't ever have to be confrontational. So if you're working in bite-sized pieces, you're just doing quick debriefs. Here's what you did to help. Here's what I saw you do to hinder. If you can keep things conversational and there's slight adjustments, if you're just doing 1 degree adjustments long-term, it keeps us so on course. We don't have to do these big adjustments. So we've got to get really conversational and we've got to get good at not only giving feedback, but developing our people to get great at receiving feedback and being toggled up and not letting feedback be personal. So lesson number 1 when it comes to feedback is keep it conversational so you never have to get confrontational. And then your performance reviews are not trying to get people all the way out of denial into a new topic, depersonalizing it and accepting it and working on it. Your performance reviews are a non-event. They are a review of the many conversations we've had. So that's number 1. Hello from Winnipeg, Wanda. I love that you're on. And Gwen's here for the refresher. We got Chris from Fargo. I had such a blast in Fargo. So what would be a good approach to cold calling? Having a hard time with that. Would love your opinion. Josh. Fantastic. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to come back to that at the end here. A good approach to cold calling. Is there an amount of time to wait when you give somebody kudos, but also have to give them something that they need to improve on? So I don't know that there's any perfect formula. I personally do not like what they used to, kind of call the shit sandwich, where you put positive piece of bread and then bury the storyline and negative, because I think it keeps you in polarity where you're saying this is positive, this is negative. I want you to take out all of that. This is how to be more effective. Keep doing this. Get more skilled in this area. So the first thing is keep it conversational. And the second thing is to really use words that don't sugarcoat, but don't trigger the ego. Whether this is in your relationship or your work life, words like you always, you never, anything that implies motive, or I know you're trying to do this to show up, anything that you are assuming judgment, assigning motive, anything you have a story about. In order to give good feedback, you need to go in having processed your work and taken out your story or your insult where there isn't any, or your personalization. So better feedback words are like, I've noticed you might have a tendency towards, in some situations, I've witnessed you showing up this way. If I haven't witnessed it, I say things like, someone who cares a lot about your success pointed out to me, because I'm your leader, that this may be a great invitation. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but everything we're given is an invitation to toggle up or down. It's an invitation to accept the feedback. And you know what? You don't have to accept the feedback, because here's how the universe works. You will get that feedback again and again in relationship after relationship until you start to think, I wonder. And the thing about feedback is you don't have to take it to be blatant truth or indictment or you're guilty as charged. It can be another data point. And so it's so important in giving feedback that we keep perspective, that this is part of the whole package, and that we, in receiving feedback, take a look at that. But in the giving of feedback, you want it to be as processed as possible for your own unconscious biases. You need to really look at the margin of error that you give people, right? And you want the margin of error to be bigger. So what we talk about, especially with women, if you're leading women, you've got to watch your own biases, whether you're male or female or however you identify. Men tend to be, by our Western society, if you're working in this culture, they tend to be given a large margin of error. So they can one day be pretty straightforward and another day not say a word in a meeting, and no one makes any meaning of it. Women have a smaller margin of error. Young people have a smaller margin of error. People outside of your 10-year age group have a smaller margin of error. What I mean by that is that women who one day are very verbal and direct in a meeting, they're like, oh my gosh, that was aggressive, or get labeled the B word, where somebody is reserved in a meeting, it's like they're just not stepping up. So really be careful about the feedback that you need to give, and fine tune in on and pinpoint what really is important to the outcomes. What is your preference, your style, and what is really about like a qualification to get work done here in this culture. So conversational, use words that don't sugarcoat it. Don't say like, well, sometimes like when I need you here, you aren't. And like not on Mondays, but sometimes on Tuesdays, you have an attendance issue. Like if it is measurable and real, it's just, I've noticed your attendance is inconsistent. And when you are giving feedback, when possible, if it's performance feedback, have the feedback come from a metric in the organization, like your sales numbers. Here's how many calls you made. Here's the typical length of call. Here's your percentage of first call resolution. And I've noticed as I've listened in on some of your calls that you struggle with controlling the call. So that's where I'd like you to develop in next. This isn't working yet. These are all ways that you keep the message strong, but you add support. So you don't lower the standard, you up the support. So I want to give you an idea of a framework on how to do that and some language to use. And then I want to talk about teaching your people how to receive feedback. So the framework I laid out in the book, Reality-Based Leadership, is if you want to get super simple, it's here's what you do that helps, or here's what I saw you do that really helped, and here's what you did that may have hindered. More helping, less hindering. How do you want to approach this? But the key to this, as I give you the framework, is that we know for mid and high accountables, feedback is best when it's just really short and factual. And so we say keep feedback short, self-reflection long. When people are in mid and high accountable, too much feedback, too long, too many data points. Most people are like, got it. Yep, thanks, got it. And even though they try not to personalize it, feedback isn't as effective as feed forward. So here is something I would like you to work on next. And here's some people I see do that well. You might want to reach out to them as your assignment for self-reflection and ask them for their best techniques, or ask them about how they got to be fluent in this area. And you assign Marshall Goldsmith's Feed Forward. There's a whole book on it. There's articles on it where people put something on project status. They come up with a clear question, and then they reach out to people and say, what are some of your best techniques or your best idea? The person doesn't have to give you the total answer. They can just say, oh, well, I read this article, it was life-changing, or I started to think of, like cold calling this way, right? They don't have to give you the whole thing, but as you're getting feed forward, it's an assignment for self-reflection. You're writing down every tip you're given, and then you can go back without projecting the future. That won't work, that won't work. See which ones you'd like to start with, implement those, and see if you make progress, and then go back to that list, implement those. That's called feed forward. So feedback short, self-reflection long. And that's why I ask leaders to really pre-process feedback. So it's short, it's on point, it's on topic, it has no story combined with it, that you are really saying, here's where I want you to focus on next. And here's what we're going to put on project status and kind of measure. Here's the next thing. If you got more skilled in, you would be more effective in the world. So the whole goal with feedback is to help you walk more effectively through the world. The best feedback doesn't come from you as a leader. It comes from reality. So one mistake leaders make is they interfere with people's relationship with reality, right? They enable them to not have to have that relationship. So the best feedback is me saying, what was your goal? Well, I really wanted my private practice in a small town to succeed. You'll notice these are questions. And I'll say, so what approach did you adopt? Well, I just really tried hard to form relationships in the community. And I'd say, and how's that working for you? I want them to see how far they know about themselves. Well, my practice isn't that great. What do you attribute that to? Well, the hospital doesn't do enough marketing, and the powers that be don't support me. So what's your part in that? I want to see if people can self-generate feedback by their relationship with reality. So I would say, well, if I can I point out a few things I've noticed? You wanted a really successful practice in a small town, and yet you brought in an outside builder to build your home. You didn't do that locally. And so that's just one thing I've noticed. How far off am I? I don't even say, is that correct? It's like, how far off am I? Well, nobody here, they're all a bunch of hicks, and nobody here can build a good house. So how might that I just saw right there affect your relationships in town? If your goal is building a practice and your approach is hiring people outside of town to do your work, how might that affect your goal? Like, what are the odds of that approach working? So with mid and high accountables, I try and stay away from feedback. I just ask what the goal is, what they've noticed about their own results, where the gap is, what approach they've used, how's that working for them? What would you like to change in your approach? How can I support you? So if possible, I stay away from feedback altogether and use self-reflection instead. In the events I need to give feedback, I use a frame. There's 4 parts to it. I call it a frame because there's 4 squares. I fill this in before I ever get the person in front of me. And I don't even mind if they see it. I want them to know I really pre-process my work, and I chose my words and my topic intentionally. So I don't mind people seeing my cheat sheet. The number one thing, and this is fill in the blank, one topic all the way around. You can't bundle things. So let's say that I continue to work with someone who gives me, when I ask for deliverables, they're oftentimes delayed. I want to dig deeper. I don't want to give them feedback on just They have to be on time. That's not really actionable. Like if it was actionable, they would be on time. We need to dig deeper into what is driving the delays. So I've had some preliminary conversations. I've thought a lot about it. I've watched how they work. First, fill in the blank is here's what is working. Here is what I notice you do helps. Here is what I'm impressed by. Now, you just pick one of those questions. I'm just giving you the topic of the first frame. So I need to come up with something positive, not just to bury the negative. I need to come up with something positive to ask me to take perspective, to remember in the giving of this feedback, this is one part of a whole person, that this person has good motive. I assume positive intent. I am releasing that. So I might say to this person for the first step in this, one of the things I so appreciate about you is your attention to detail. You are very thorough and you are willing to dig deep and spend the time necessary in some complex things. I mean that. Like, I'm not detail oriented. So that's what I might say. Here's what I appreciate about you, or here's what's working. Here's what you're doing well. Same topic. Here's what's not working yet. I imply hope. This is fixable. You're not a flawed human being. My love for you is unconditional. It's just behavior that I'm wanting to give you more choices. It's not even I want to change or develop you. I want you to have more choices, because if you can own something, accountability, if you have the accountability to account for how you got here, then you will have the ability to respond differently. And choice, if I can just show you a space where you have freedom of choice, you can be intentional. I give you freedom. I give you free will. That's what people want. They focus on us micromanaging them, but what they really need to understand is all the places they have choices. So second topic, here's what's not working yet, or here's what I would like you to focus on next, or here's where I would like you to develop in next. What that implies is everybody's always working on something. If you work for me, you're always being asked to evolve. Evolution isn't just like grow and sustain. Evolution is the minute that's mastered, we're going to master something else and master else. So for this person, the attention to detail, I'll say what's not working for me yet is I notice that you approach every single project with the same attention to detail, and not every project merits that approach. I don't yet see you having discernment or a way to budget up front. Does this need a full feasibility analysis, feasibility study? Does this just need a quick eyeball with an iterative suggestion for what's next? So that's the second part. You just name what you think might be leading to your projects being late. So I would say what's not working yet is I see you missing deadlines in projects, and I'm wondering if it doesn't have something to do with this piece. Here's what I've noticed. You apply kind of the same approach to every project. You're not differentiating, okay? The third piece is, now that I've introduced the topic, I'm a fan of yours, and I've pinpointed what I'd like to work on. I'm gonna shut up and get super curious. Topic number 3 in this 4-topic frame. Topic number 3 is help me understand. I'm curious. Tell me about that. So I might say, help me understand when I do give you kind of the outline for a project, how you do make those decisions about how much time you are going to budget, or what level of detail that you go through, or help me understand where I'm on target with that feedback and off target with that feedback. Like, I just want to sit back and listen, like, tell me more and walk me through that, and, talk to me about your process. Or at that point, you might say, I never really even considered that was part of scoping a project, is to choose if this merited a quick glance, or whether this merited full number crunching. So whatever is there for curiosity, that's where you go, well, perhaps then the next step is to learn more about this topic, or to talk to some people who are good at this, because we can't just in a vacuum, like suddenly go, oh, thanks for the feedback, let me change. I have to see it being done experientially. I have to increase my knowledge about it. I've got to have experiences in order to practice it. I need some mentoring while we walk through it. So I might say, perhaps a good assignment right now is to reach out to these few people who tend to do well with it and ask them. Or it may be, a good Google search on this, and then come back to me with what you found out. Let's just keep a conversation going about this, because development happens when you can get conversational about your own next growth, where you can come to me and go, I'm working on discernment and pre-budgeting time a project, merits. Yeah, I do. That's awesome. What did you find out? Well, I connected these two dots, or I talked to this person, or I Googled this, or we might start to say, so from now on, when I do give you an assignment, one of the things I want us to do is not just leave that up to you. Let's have a conversation about initiating that assignment. And let's, for the next couple of weeks, decide how much time that merits. Let's have more of a conversation up front. I'm just giving you examples, but you got to pre-think about this. Then the final frame is, here's what's possible. I am confident that what's possible is, if you learn this discernment piece, you're going to be able to keep the commitments you make. You're either going to make commitments where, if you want that level of analysis, it's not possible in a week, or you're going to be able to say, what, here's the level of analysis I can give that. And you're going to be a more plug and play, agile, iterative player, where we can trust that you'll properly give the right amount of resources to the assignments we give. So you end on here's what's positive. Now, how I got good at this, to make sure that, and some of you are signing off, and you can watch this recording. How I got good at this is I would practice with pop culture figures. So when you can tell the time I was practicing this, Mel Gibson had just gone on the Jay Leno show and denied the Holocaust. And Britney Spears had just driven up to a court custody case for her kids and didn't get out of the car and drove away. So I, on the drive to work, would just practice. I would be use the feedback frame. Mel, what I so appreciate about you is your ability to just find incredible roles. I mean, Braveheart, do I need to say more? Mel, what's not working yet is your whole take on the Holocaust and how you are treating women, what's making the news right now. Help me understand, what was your goal going on the Jay Leno show and denying, the murder, the well-documented murder of almost an entire ethnic group. And because here's what's possible, Mel, with the right medication. I really think as a therapist, some lithium, you could redeem yourself. Brittany, I love your ability to really garner mass followings. What's not working yet is your current parenting approach. Help me understand what your goal was when you were pulling up and then not going into the court case. Because here's what I think is possible. You're 22 years old. You have a mass following. You could really show people how to make amends and come back and put their lives on the right courses. We all screw up in our 20s. And I just practiced that in silly situations until it got just really conversational for me. And you'll know when it's working, because it becomes a good mental process. People go, so what do you appreciate about me? What do I need to develop in next? Help me move through this, what's possible. The other thing we need to do with folks is, if we feel uncomfortable giving them feedback because we're scared of their reaction, that's the first place we need to ask them to develop. I once was called in by a leader I'll always thank. She said, I need to give you some feedback, and I have not enjoyed the last few times I've given you feedback. You don't receive it well, Sai. I have experienced that you get very defensive and argumentative. So before I even give you the feedback, I need to work on your capability to receive feedback. And she handed me 5 index cards, those recipe cards we have when we were younger. And she had written One said, so I'm going to limit your options so that you can practice responding to feedback appropriately. And here are your 5 options. She gave me my feedback, and it was upsetting feedback. And I'm like, pull up my first card. She goes, stick to the cards. You can only use something on a card. And the first card said, thank you. I will gladly look at that. I'm like, throw that card away because she's dead wrong on this. And the next one was like, I've noticed that about myself too. Will you help me with that? And the next one was, I'm so willing to look at this. I just seen some additional examples. Like every one of the cards, I don't remember each one of them, was so appropriate. And she had to narrow down my responses to that point so that I would just stop the instant, toggle down, fight or flight. And I would just allow space to try them on for size with putting my energy towards finding out how they could be true. And that's another thing I do with employees is when I give them feedback, I don't expect them to work through it in that day or that hour. I say, I want to give you some feedback and I'm glad to let you just have some time with it. And your assignment for self-reflection back to me on how that could be true. Just come back to me. So one time, someone had come to me about someone's body language in a meeting. And I said, someone who cares about your success, let me know that at times your body language appears to be intimidating and stops conversations instead of invites them. But don't take my word for it. I'm not even there. Here's your assignment for self-reflection. When you're in a meeting, turn on your camera on your phone, just videotape yourself, play it back fast with no sound, and just find a couple of examples on how it could be true. That's all I asked. This person came back, they're like, I've scoured colleagues, everyone agrees it's not true. I'm like, wow, you spent a lot of time finding out how it wasn't true, but my assignment was, can you find out how it is true or could be true? Everything people give us for feedback, if we're human, could be true. You're a liar. Yep, if you look at my driver's license, it says I weigh 170 pounds. True. In that case, I'm a total liar. And it could be a felon, because if you lie to a federal agency like the TSA, it is like a felony in some cases. So I can find that. You want people to practice getting mentally flexible. So I said, go away and come back and find a couple of ways it could be true. Because I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to develop in you the capacity to entertain everything without personalization and to find that many things are true at once. I'm honest to a fault, and there are times that I'm dishonest to look better to the public. Wow, good to know. So we want to help our people receive feedback as well. And that's really what I want to come on and say about feedback. I'm talking a lot about feedback, and we've just overblown this thing. It's just part of a conversation where I share with you what I'm experiencing without crossing the line in claiming it to be true. And I'm just making the invitation that you step up and see if this is good information for you or not. And I don't have to worry about it, because if it's true and you don't pick up what I'm throwing down this time, the universe will keep whispering and then shouting. Like, you'll learn what you need to learn eventually. Until I get into like performance management, this is just development feedback. It's just inviting people to accept an invitation to take a look. So Sarah put out that piece out there in the No Ego Toolkit. We have the feedback frame. It's in my first book. Make sure that you are signed up for our newsletter. We are building a community. The algorithms in social media mean we don't always reach you with great content. We are coming up with fantastic content in our newsletters that come out every other week. And we really want to build that. So if you have a team, get everybody signed up for our newsletter, get it whitelisted in your organization. It's like free training. Share this video. And I want to go back. Somebody asked about cold calling. Whenever I'm finding myself struggling, now I look first at the language I give it and the story I have around it. So the word cold calling implies is a horrible experience. I hate being cold. That's why I live in Mexico. Like, if you go cold calling, I automatically have a whole story attached to that. When I get cold called, it ticks me off. When I'm cold calling, who don't want to hear from me, who have no reason to listen to me. So take out cold calling and they trying to give information and trying to get a conclusion. But what I would ask you to do when you're cold calling is to focus more on understanding your customer and just reaching out. Hey, how's your day? What's up? Have some humor. It's my understanding that you have a need. Is that true? I would love to let you know about a way we think we can solve that for you. What's the best way to do that? I understand you might not have time right now. You know, there's so much out there, but I think the biggest thing I would give you, I think it was Dan that asked, cold calling, is you've got to change your relationship with the activity, and you've got to get rid of all of your like biases that are negative and all the labels and the story you put on it. I'm simply being asked to pick up the phone and connect with somebody and help if I can. I got no problems with that. I'm going to do 10 of those today. So before you try and master something, first examine your relationship to it, because that's usually, it starts with willingness. So when you're struggling with something, it's either your willingness, your skill set, you're using an outdated skill set for a new reality, or your approach, you're using a less than modern approach. And so anyway, this is cold calling, and it's been fun because I'm basically letting you know, reminding you we have great information for you. So I wanted to just jump in and talk about that. Thank you for, it sounds like some of you needed this information. Some people had to jump off and go. The recording will be out there. And somebody else asked a really good question. So I'm going to go see what Imogene said, if I can find it before I sign off. It said something, Yay had a good question. Approach to cold calling, it was Josh that asked the cold calling. Is there a good amount of time to wait when you give somebody a kudos, but also give them something they need to prove on? I think you can do it like in the same session. The difference isn't like, can you do it all at once? It's how close to the situation you give the conversation makes it conversation, not confrontational. If somebody knows that this happened 3 weeks ago and now you're just talking to me, that adds confrontation to it. Time is really good, that live processing, and then you review in a batch process. So excellent feedback, measurable. How do you respond to someone who is defensive? And defensiveness is somebody's toggling down. And so best way to get somebody to toggle up is self-reflection. You might even ask, like, I've noticed that this seems upsetting to you, and I'm just wondering, is there something I could do to make this easier to receive? Or there's no one right question, but to toggle people up, it's like, what's happening for you right now? Or if somebody is defensive, you may just say, this isn't something I need you to process publicly in front of me. Are you okay with just sitting with this and let's reconnect tomorrow? And or reassuring, get their emotional brain back intact. I really want you to know that I have a high opinion of the work that you do, and this is just a development conversation that we're having. And so, and I ask people, can you re-engage back in a way that's more open? I'll give you just a second to do that. And if not, I got no problems. Let's connect back in tomorrow and come in. I'll give you some space to kind of keep yourself like centered. Whatever that is, acknowledge the reality that's going on from your perspective, make it tentative. You're not defining the experience of another, and be curious and ask people to self-reflect. That usually toggles them up. Give them space. They can set a boundary and say, yes, let's talk about this tomorrow. This is like the final straw on a bad day. Like, there's nothing we're giving people feedback on usually that is so urgent that we have to settle it all in one session. So I'm going to let you guys go, and it's been a pleasure to connect. I will talk to you later.